Hello and welcome to the Bacon Bites, everybody. Happy Saturday morning here in Seattle. We're excited to go ahead and get started. This is a morning with bacon and business apps, and so we're just excited to get here and get it started. And already have some music in the background from the lovely City Noise. So we'll have that in the background a little bit more this morning. So hopefully you guys have had a good week and have enjoyed getting back into the swing of things here in January. And so we're excited to get that started. It's been a crazy kind of 2 weeks here in Seattle as we've gotten back on a couple of projects and just coming back from the new year, what that looks like. And so that was the reason we didn't get a chance to stream last week, is didn't have a chance to sort of prep and get things ready. Make sure we have new content ahead of project kickoff, and it's going to be a lot of stuff, and so we're excited to do that. But it's also a lot of work and late hours and stuff like that as we get ready to go live with the client. So not even go live, just get the project kickoff. And so anyway, so we'll definitely be bringing some of that into our future streams, just some of the things that we're learning and making sure that people have some good content that they can go out and see. And it was interesting. We were part of the onsite. One of the new system administrators is coming off an Access database. And so it was one of those things that he was interested in learning more about. How do we get started? How does somebody new get started? And I was like, well, under the table, of course. Not under the table, but there's YouTubers out there, and I may happen to know one. So if you have any topics, let me know. And so if you guys have any topics that you guys want to see covered on any of these live streams, let me know. Feel free to hit me up in the chat. I think it's on the side or down below. Airborne Camo is already out there hitting us up, or feel free to hit us up on Twitter. So at the Bacon Bites, or I think that's about it, or hit us up on email. So social@thebaconbites.com is another way to get a hold of us. So anyways, a couple of different ways. And so if you guys have content that you want to see either as a recorded video, I still have a recording that I need to do based on our last live stream on the 5th. And so now what we're going to do is we'll jump into content here in just a second. But anyways, if you have anything that you want to see on these shows, feel free to reach out. One of the requests, and that's actually what we're going to be doing today, is what does Dynamics look like just standard? And so just give us a quick overview. And again, there's a lot of people that have done this. Unfortunately, I feel like a lot of them have been in a salesy kind of way, as opposed to just sort of a process and showing us what it is. And so that was one of the things that the client requested. And so in an effort to help sort of them, we'll go ahead and go through that today. Again, this is not taking away from what I do on a standard work thing, and so it's definitely part of it. And so this is meant to supplement that. So if anybody from RSM's watching, that's what this is for. I'm not selling it. I'm not trying to make any money off of any of this. So anyways, that's what we got going on. So cool. So what we'll go ahead and do is, as you can see in the show notes or in the description down below, we are going to go through, and I haven't thrown this out there yet, but we're going to go through like we always do. Give some news, and first off, always updating on the community and what's going on there. And so I want to highlight a couple of people that I follow on Twitter and follow in a couple of different places. And so I wanted to highlight them and what they've been doing. And so first one I wanted to highlight today is Daryl LaBar. So he is an MVP and is currently with Power Objects, if I remember right. I'm curious on what they have a winner for, but anyways, so Daryl LaBar is, I had a chance to meet him. He taught at the Dynamics CRM Saturday out here in Seattle. I think that was November timeframe, if I remember right. So I've had a chance to meet him and interact with him a couple times in person, which is awesome. And so lots of fun. He's very exciting. He's an awesome speaker. I had the opportunity to sit in a couple of his sessions, and he's always active on Twitter. It's great. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to him. I'm just going to put him out there. And he's somebody that has a lot of fun. I think this is him in New York or Times Square. And so just very somebody that's got a lot of technical expertise. And so if you're a .NET developer or somebody that's interested in .NET, this is his .NET Dust. blog post. So it looks like this is still active. I think he's throwing out some stuff out there. Again, this is somebody that I follow, and it's just keep a pulse on what's happening in the developer community. It's not something that I don't really understand what I'm looking at right here. But it's something that I'm able to get a pulse on what's going on out there, just by seeing what he's doing and seeing some of the tricks that he's bringing in and being able to bring that into what we're doing on a daily basis over at RSM as well. So that's why I'm looking. That's why I follow Daryl. Great guy to meet and interact with, and also somebody that's very active in the community, and somebody that's always looking to give in different ways. And so very much appreciate him. The other thing that he's doing is he's on a podcast, as everybody is these days. And so if I can find it, he's on this XRM Toolcast, which is focused on the XRM Toolbox. And so it's him and Jonas are both the two hosts, along with, I think, Sean Tabor occasionally. So anyways, the two of them are on this podcast, and it focuses on the XRM Toolbox. And so the last podcast that they did was came out earlier this week. And so just want to highlight that. And again, I'll throw it down in the show notes. But again, it's from a developer. And so the XRM Toolbox, hopefully everybody has heard of it. If not, there should be a link out here, but it's a community platform, a free tool that people are able to use and have the opportunity to go ahead and add additional things to it. And so there's I always get his name wrong, but Tanza guy, I forget exactly, apologize how you pronounce your name. But anyway, so he's put out essentially this framework and this tool, and everybody uses it. And then there's a bunch of different applications and plugins that people have created and put in there. And you can see just the huge list here. It looks like it's probably over 100 now, which is just crazy. And each one is designed to, a lot of ways, do one specific thing and make it easier, all while it's supported. And so people are able to go ahead and download it. So the total number of downloads, looks like it's the plugin trace viewer followed by the fetch XML builder. And again, both of those are built by Jonas. And then there you go, Daryl's on number 3 there with the early bound generator. So anyways, so very much recommend following Daryl and following sort of his path. And he's a great person if you're in the developer community to see what's going on and keep a pulse on what's out there. So I will link those in the show notes down below. The other one I wanted to highlight is Stephan Smith. He's somebody that I started following recently. He actually used to work at Microsoft a little while ago. And so he is now, I forget where he's working at now, but anyway, so he's somebody that recently sort of joined the external Microsoft community. And so he's been someone that he's starting to get more active in Twitter and in social media, and somebody that I very much appreciate. He actually posted on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago, just my podcast with Neil Benson. And so very much appreciate Stephen for doing that. And I wanted to make sure I highlighted him because he's somebody that's I feel like in the last, 6 months or so when he left Microsoft, he's just kind of jumped in with both feet. And so he's kind of always been there, and you'll hear, I think he was on Gus's CRM MVP podcast maybe a year plus ago. But now he's definitely more active in the community. And so very much appreciate him and what he's doing and just giving back. And one of the things, again, going back to the CRM audio, is he's got a show as well. And if I can find it, I will highlight it. I don't think it's the Power Apps. It's not the Scrum. Dynamics Mechanics, is this right? David Yak. I'll highlight him some other time. Steven, I apologize, man. I thought I had it. It's not implement this. It's not the Power Apps one, Steven, is it? If you know down in the chat, hit me up and which one Steven's is. And I know chat's a little bit behind. Those Dynamics guys. Yeah, so that's out of the UK. So anyways, I will find Stephen's show and list it down in the bottom. He's had one recently. But anyways, anyways, so he's got a podcast out there, and this is the problem, not the problem necessarily with CRM audio, but they have like 6 different shows all in sort of that one brand. And so I forget what the title is. When you listen to it every day, you just kind of rotate through all the different content. And I can't remember which one Stephan is. And I felt like he had one last week that came out, so I was going to highlight that. So anyway, Stephan, I apologize, man. I will put it down in the show notes, but I very much appreciate what he's doing and how he's giving back. And so the other thing I would, just looking here, the 12 followers I know, 25 followers I know, just take a look at who other people like this follow, and that'll give you a good idea on who else is out there and who they respect and who they follow. And so currently he's only following 220, so it shouldn't be too bad. Looks like Stephan's following a few more, but anyways, follow those people, and you're able to find those other MVPs, and that's pretty cool. So anyways, so those are a couple of different people I wanted to highlight as part of the community update. One other thing I wanted to highlight on the community itself is a couple of the events that are coming up. And so again, we have the CRM Saturdays portal. Let me see if I can find it. Where was I going? I was going to Power Platform World Tour. Silicon Valley. And so we have this coming up. I think I highlighted it last week. But anyways, in February, the Power Platform is coming to Silicon Valley area, again, San Jose area. And I have the opportunity to actually speak at this event. And so I'll be speaking on Tuesday, February 19th, talking about new shiny tools. And again, this is that concept, kind of like what we're doing here, is going through and just highlighting these different the different tools and where do you use each of them and how do you connect to these different backends, and just again trying to help people get up to speed. There's a lot of interesting things that are going on with Flow, and it's something that's currently not in the Microsoft government cloud, if I remember right, or at least not in the tenant that we're working with. And so there's some limitations there, and so making sure that you understand with where you're at and where you're going, if you're able to leverage those. And so that's again one of the things that we're going to be going through this. I want to highlight Jamie Barker out of RSM UK. Also follow Jamie online out there. I would recommend him. He's down in the show notes, but follow him. He's somebody else that I would encourage people to highlight because he gave me a PowerPoint and a starting point. He did a presentation internal that I'll be using as the starting point here as part of this presentation. So I want to make sure I give him credit as part of that. So anyways, so that's going on. And then lastly, as always, what's going on in Seattle /Seattle should get us there. We'll see if it gets us all the way there. Again, just want to highlight what's going on in our community. If you guys have other communities that you guys want me to highlight during this, let me know. And so very much appreciate that. And so anyways, we have a community event coming up in February 13th at the Bellevue office here in Seattle. And so just wanted to highlight that. And again, it's already over halfway full. I think we have about 60 seats, and we have anywhere between 35 or so people and 40 signed up. So make sure you guys register soon as part of that. And we are excited to do an app in a day. And so we'll have lunch and all that kind of good stuff as well at the Microsoft office. So please come join us. So thanks, everyone. Camo, for that shout out. Thanks for pointing out. So real quick, Airborne Camo. Thanks for pointing out others in the industry to follow as well. Yeah, it's an awesome asset. I think it's one of the best things about the community is other people highlight each other, and everybody kind of has a unique place that they play in the space, and very much appreciate the opportunity to follow them. And Twitter's been a great place to do that. So other places I would encourage people to follow, again, if you're not part of it, Dynamics Communities. It's a great tool and a great community where people can post forums and have questions. And again, there's all sorts of people. And again, I think the best part about this, if I can get to the discussions, is the fact that we have anybody and everybody answering questions, like in a good way. So Charles is a developer out of the UK. Neil Benson, who we've highlighted before, is an MVP focused on Scrum. A couple of other people. I'm just kind of scanning through here if I recognize anybody else by name. Patrick Wright, again, somebody that's heavily involved in Dynamics communities. So very much I appreciate what Patrick is doing. I think he's with Cherry Beckert, if I remember right, and so he's their admin internal, which is really cool. So that's the quick community update on that. Looks like I may be peaking a little, so I'm going to turn my mic down just a bit. So that's the community update. Anything else out there in the community that people wanted to highlight as part of this morning? Feel free to drop it down in the chat and we'll get over to that. I'm going to put this over on the other screen. And we'll see how long we go today. We do have family in town. It's not that you can see them, but they're off camera. So have a live studio audience. We need to work on the studio part of the studio audience part. But anyways, so excited to have family in town. And so very much appreciate them coming out and seeing Baby Bacon. Baby Bacon has been kind of on a roller coaster. So he may sleep for 2 hours this morning. He may sleep for 20 minutes. We'll find out. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump into content. Nothing new as far as news goes that we'll be doing today. I guess the only news part, and this is something that was highlighted by a lot of people, is that the Microsoft is deprecating social insights, if I remember correctly. So, thank you, CRM MVP Media. So anyways, social insights is being deprecated. So again, I think a lot of people feel like that's fine because it's something that where Microsoft is already going to be pulling into the marketing aspect of it. So let's go ahead, and I appreciate CRM MVP Media jumping out there. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that up as well. I think that's Gus Gonzalez back behind the scenes. Boston Dynamics 365 Saturdays. Yeah, this is something that's all over social media right now if you haven't had a chance to see it. Again, this is why I recommend following CRM MVP podcast, as well as Gus and Neil Benson. These guys are Neil and then Nick Dolman. So again, I'm going to put this, and this may just be a running thing that's sitting in the show notes, is 365 Saturdays. So we got Boston, we got Scotland coming up, and then also Milan. So I tried to make a pitch to get over to the other side and of either the country or get over the other side of the ocean, and that was something that didn't happen this time around. So they said you can go down to San Jose. That's as far as you can go this time. So anyways, no, I'm kidding. But anyways, check it out. So we have the conference center here in Boston that we'll be going to. It looks like it's at Microsoft in Burlington. So this is only 6 days away. This is next Saturday, as Gus mentioned. And so make sure you guys register on this. Often these will fill up fairly quickly as well. And so definitely check those out. Awesome. You got some of the speakers here. So Microsoft AI, I'd be very interested in seeing what that looks like. It's hosted by Microsoft. Here again is the Portals by Nick Dolman, the crash course. I think that's going to be a great session. Nick does an awesome job, as I've mentioned before, just quickly getting people up to speed on what they need to know. Obviously, this isn't, I think he has a full day course as well that he has out there, but this will be a great opportunity there. And then again, we got Gus configuring the Dynamics user interface like an MVP. This is probably going to be based off the podcast that he did, was it last week? The week before? So CRM MVP podcast, check him out. And so he did a podcast on doing that like an MVP. So he had a lot of good tips and tricks and things to be mindful of. And again, just sort of rules as you're going through it. So check that out as well. It looks like there's a couple of different rooms, which is really cool. Jason Latimer is going to be up there. I don't know Andrew, but talking about flows. And again, this is where I think it's very cool that people are starting to bring this kind of stuff in. So here's some of the speakers. So check them out. There's James. I've interacted with him. He recently got his MVP. So congrats, James, on that. And yeah, so that's the people that'll be there, and Kylie, and then Todd as well. So we got 6 days. So that's exciting stuff. And then again, we got Scotland coming up. And so in Glasgow, and I feel like we have some people potentially that were speaking at both. Did Nick make it on both of these? So Jonas will be out there. So make sure you guys say hey to Jonas and Mark Smith, who we've highlighted on the show before as well. I don't see, I thought we, I don't know. I feel like Nick's flying everywhere right now. But he may just be doing a one-off standoff kind of thing. So Chris is also somebody that will highlight and follow. Ben Vollmer, if you guys have been around the space for a long time, Ben is another great speaker. Is he at Microsoft now? I feel like he's at Microsoft now. Global Dynamics 365, yeah. So I think he's at Microsoft. So anyways, lots of events starting next week. I think the other thing to highlight on this one is they do have Ben's talking on Friday. And so make sure you guys check that out on Friday if you're looking for Ben's session. And it looks like MVP Podcast is doing 5 developer MVPs, recording a special podcast episode for his side. So Gus is trying to keep up with all the things that are coming out with CRM Audio and trying to get some developer content in there. So I'm excited about that. And I'm excited to see. So if you guys haven't checked out, I think CRM MVP Podcast, they just did a recent video or blog style video on his new setup. So I'm excited, Gus, to see that. I hate pop-ups. Anyways, sorry, get super distracted there. Anyways, check out Gus's new video. I'll try to include it in the link below. And it's going to be interesting. And Gus, not to throw something on top of what you're already doing, but it'd be interesting to like film you like setting it up and what that looks like. So actually having the system in action. So it may be good B-roll for later. I don't know if you can do a whole blog on it, but anyways, okay, cool. So let's go ahead and jump into some content today. So with that, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to put this over here so I don't forget to include it in the show notes. Okay, so the question came up last week with the client saying, awesome, I appreciate what RSM's doing with their accelerator, how they're bringing it in, and what it's going to look like. But what I want to see is, what does Dynamics look vanilla? And I often tell people the best and worst thing about Dynamics when it's vanilla. And so it can be anything that you want it to be. It can go anywhere you want it to go. It's an XRM platform. It's a rapid development platform, which is awesome. But at the same time, out of the box, it's kind of blah. Not like in a bad way necessarily, but it meets a lot of needs, but it's very static. And so anyway, so I want to go through that. That was the request that somebody had made. So again, the client had made it. And so I want to make sure we highlight that for new people that are coming on. And what we'll do is we'll timestamp this so that way people can jump ahead. And we won't get into all the details and stuff like that in the nitty gritty, but wanted to just show what it looks like so that way people can see it, and we'll get started. So if there's features you want to call out, I'm going to try to take this again from the perspective of somebody that's starting new and somebody that's interested in it. We're not going to call each and every feature out and each and every button. We would be here, what is it, 600 pages or 200 pages? No, I think it's 400 pages. Anyways, the owner's manual essentially for Dynamics is like 400 plus pages. We can link that in the description as well. But it's just crazy. So anyways, so we won't be going through each and everything, but wanted to show that. So for those new to Dynamics, what this is this is a dashboard. And I know this is fairly basic for a lot of people. If you've been around Dynamics, feel free to chime in, like I said. But anyways, what we're looking at here is a dashboard. So this is a landing place. This is using not the unified interface. So there's a new unified interface that's here. This environment, like I said, I think a couple of weeks ago, doesn't make use of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop out, I think it's customer service. And we'll bring that over. I'm going to try to duplicate this tab. And we'll see what happens. But anyways, so this new unified interface, and again, just wanted to show for comparison. Again, this is where Microsoft's going, so be aware of that. Be aware that they are going to start funneling people that way. And of course, it's going to be slow. I think we did this. This is what happened last time. Yep. So as soon as I drag it over to the other screen, it works. So we'll go through this and have fun with it. This is not the new unified interface. This is that other tab I wanted to keep up. So I'm going to put that up on the other screen as it's loading. The other blessing occurs. We'll see. Okay, and of course it comes up at the same time. Anyways, maybe it's the Service Hub. So that's coming up. And so let's change it to the display. You probably want to see this more than you want to see me. So as that's coming up, again, the way that Dynamics is built, it typically has somebody drive from a dashboard. And so the goal with any implementation is that from a dashboard, you can answer 80+% of your questions immediately, or 80% of what you need to do immediately. Because the goal with any system should be the fact, and again, this is why this is business application. So whether it's Dynamics, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's Act, whatever it is, it should be helping you perform your tasks, not getting in the way of those tasks. And so if your task is to, as a caseworker, we're doing a lot of this kind of stuff with health and human services. Your job is to help the individual, and the system is there to help track that, help remind you, help make sure you're on task. The system shouldn't be getting in the way of helping that individual, right? And so it's this weird thing that people, when we get in and you have somebody that's a developer or somebody that's a business application person and a consultant, what they want to do is make the system do things, and which is good, but they often forget about, and this is what something that Gus has talked about many times, is the fact that you should think about your customers. So if I'm a caseworker, I'm the end user and I'm the one using the system, but what is their customer is the individual needing services. And so what is their experience? And so if I'm over here typing in the whole time and I'm looking down at my keyboard, I'm looking down at my iPad, and I'm not interacting as a caseworker with the individual, then that gets in the way. And it was something that one of the partners here at RSM talks about often. He's like, often you're dealing with nonverbals when you're doing casework. And so people that are nonverbal or autistic or have disabilities, you can't have any interference between you and the individual. And so because they're playing with blocks or they're doing something, and so you're having a conversation. And so I can't have my clinical notes over here on an iPad necessarily and trying to type in this kind of stuff, because that detracts from what I'm trying to do as part of of the service that I'm providing. And so just being very aware of that. So anyways, dashboards are meant and should be designed in such a way that they help you quickly get in the system, answer the questions, perform the tasks, and then get out of the system. The goal of a system should not be that the person's in there 100% of the time, unless their job is to do analytics or something like that, or to configure the system. So often I feel like we forget that as somebody that's implementing the system, is that our job is to be there 100% of the time. But our clients or the people using, the end users, should not be in the system 100% of the time. It should be maybe up on the background or on another tab, but their job should not be to be in the system. So anyways, with that said, dashboards are made up of a couple of different components. A lot of times what we have are charts. And so can I answer a question quickly, either as a manager or as somebody that's in the field? How many cases do I have? What cases do I need to work? What are the high priority cases? So if you're doing case management, those are the important questions. So here, this is a sales perspective. We have this concept of the charts, and so we can answer the questions. How many open ones do I have? How many lost ones do I have? And how many have I won? And again, this chart is currently just based on all opportunities. Here we have the open opportunities. So maybe I want to make sure that this qualified one continues to move. And again, people have preferences on should you use pie charts and should you use funnels, and that's another discussion, and follow the CRM chart guide for that one. So anyways, I can quickly see that information. The other thing you can do here is you can drill into it. So if I wanted to see it based on the account, I can see that information. And so now I'm going to see, again, a chart. So it looks like all my accounts are blank for some reason. So bad data, bad sample data. But anyways, so what you see there is just that concept again of being able to drill in, answer that question. You can pop them out. You can view the records, the underlying queries and stuff like that. And so there are a couple of buttons there. You can refresh subgrids and stuff like that. So anyways, not going through all that, but that's again why we have charts and where we go. Over here on the right, we have this concept of lists. And so where is information coming from? And so give me those detailed things, because maybe I have, these are my open leads. This is not helpful, 5,000 records. There's no way that I'm going to click through 9 at a time, 5,000 records. So anyways, this is bad design. And so it's funny because these are all out of the box things. And for some reason, it's really bad. But the concept's there. And again, the fact that you have to scroll. So while you're designing these kind of things, be very mindful of that. But here we have being able to go in, understand what my open leads are. And if you have a handful of leads, being able to drill into that. And again, being able to highlight what was the last activity or something like that. Maybe that's a helpful column to drop out there as well. what are my open opportunities? And again, when we come to dynamics and we come to the sort of the sales side of it, we have this concept of leads. So people that dropped in a business card in a fishbowl at a trade show. And then we have the concept of open opportunities, and an opportunity is somebody we've qualified. And so they drop their business card in a fishbowl. And I know I've done this. I drop it in there hoping to get the free iPad or something like that. But the fact is I'm never going to need an ERP system because I am working with a 9,000 person company, and I'm not a decision, a purchasing decision buyer or an influencer even. And so I drop it in there to a third party vendor or whatever, hoping that I'll get the iPad. And when they call me up and say, hey, are you somebody that can help us purchase? My answer is nope. And that would be a disqualified lead. The other one you often hear about is like in construction. If I build buildings and somebody's looking to build a bridge, that's not something I do. And so that's a disqualified lead, even though it's still in the construction industry. So just a couple of examples there, the difference between leads and opportunities. Other components here, again, the other thing I wanted to show is just where Microsoft's going when it comes to the unified interface. I will bring that one up here. It looks like the app has lost connection. So just a little bit different in layout, sort of what the tier is. It looks like it's having connections issues, and I think we've come across this before. So I'll be working on this week in the environments. But you see sort of this new interface again, sort of coming in from the left-hand side, whereas in version 9, and again, you don't have to upgrade, but it's coming in from the top in a drop down, and you can scroll and stuff like that. And so these are all the different, typically they're tables. They don't have to be tables. And again, that's a whole nother conversation on sitemaps and applications. But these are typically, if I want to see a list of leads, so again, just navigating, navigation features, navigation from the top here. And so I can see a list of leads there. Here's, again, a list. I have that opportunity to change the views. And so a view is a query. So it's a set query. I have a system views, and you can also create personal views. So these are all being dictated at the system level. So at the highest level on the back end. So if I wanted to see all leads come through, I can see that, topics. And again, the other thing that's being driven by the system is going across and doing the navigation up there with the columns. And so that's being all driven there. You can sort, you can hold shift and sort as well. And the other thing you can do, and people sometimes miss this, but there's a chart pane on the right-hand side that you can pop out. And so I can change and see, I don't think that's going to be a good one. And the owner, they're all going to be me. But you can see how that's there. And again, anytime I change the view, it's going to change the chart as well. So the query is driving the delivery of the data. So that's one example. Again, small things with charts, you can put it on the top, you can put it on the bottom, depending on how you want to go. So if it's an important chart that people should have, and so they can have that up there on the top as well, and hide and collapse. So anyways, just a small couple of things there. You can export to Excel if you have permissions, and I think that's the big thing is there's a whole security component that we're not going to even touch on today. But you can export to Excel, and this is going to drop it into an Excel file. Surprise, surprise. But it's taking this query that you have on these records and being able to export them out to Excel. If you have additional, you can update this information and re-import it, and it'll do an update of the record. And so if you're in here, and again, this is the quick demo, not hide it, unhide it is what we're looking for. And so here we can see the GUIDs associated to it. So what was the idea of the lead? When was it modified? And so the system knows if this record gets modified in the system outside of it, then it's going to go ahead and not allow you to update it because it was modified in the system, and that is the one that wins. So you can add additional lines there as well. And so that's one way to do it. The other way to do it is you can actually, if you click the drop-down arrow, you can open in Excel Online. And so that's going to open it and allow you to edit it in Excel Online as opposed to your desktop application. So a couple of different things there. The other one I wanted to highlight, and I'll bounce over to the account. So again, navigation into account. Again, this is bad design if I have to go from a lead to an account and I'm going through it this way, because then there's no flow, right? And that's the hardest thing that I think people have is when you're designing a system, you want to have flow and you want to have it to be sort of streamlined. And we'll go back to lead here in a second. But the fact is that a system doesn't, a day in the life of is a great example, because we're like, oh, it's a day in the life of like a salesperson. And the fact is that salesperson gets phone calls, they have to reply to emails, they have meetings and everything. And so it's just up and down, up and down, up and down. And so they have to be able to go in and out of different places quickly. So here's an example of an account. So we talked about leads. That's typically a lead, an individual and a company. And then an account is typically a company, so a legal entity. I've seen other people use it in different ways as well, and so have repurposed the account, because it's a main and core component. And the other one is the I'm going to close this, make sure I'm not missing anything in chat. Doesn't look like anything yet. But the account is a main core component. The other one is contact, and so those are typically referred to as customers, because again, is it a B2B scenario where the individual is selling to a business, or is it a B2C, so they're selling to a consumer or a client or contact? So that's a little bit sort of what accounts typically are. I've also seen them be repurposed with health and human services, where it becomes the client, because the client is the individual, it's the highest priority, and that's then needs to have like a center of what do they call them, a support component of it. And so making sure that there's support around that individual. And so that's why they start with the account, and then they're able to build out a support system around them. So anyways, so that's the account. The other thing I wanted to show here, I don't think there's any opportunities. This is a form. This is the first time I've dropped into a form. So again, the way you get to a form, number of different ways. Any of these blue texts are hyperlinks. And so if you click on the hyperlink, it's going to take you to that location. Obviously a phone number, it ends up actually calling the phone number if you have a VoIP system installed. And so it'll bounce out and help you make a phone call. But when you click on that, it's going to bring you into a form. This form is going to have the attributes and fields associated on this table. So again, if you think about this from a table perspective, this is the account table. There's a bunch of different columns and a bunch of different rows. Each record is a row, and each column is a field or an attribute. And so, so that's what we're seeing here is a number of different things. And there's a bunch of fields that are in the background. Some of these fields are composite fields. So when I click on this address, it's a composite made up of a couple of different fields. And so you'll see that here. And so a couple of things to be aware of there. We do have a couple of third parties installed here as well. We also have this concept of a subgrid. So a subgrid is a list of records, a list of child records associated to this. And so you can dictate the different on a form, you can dictate where the fields sit, where are the subgrids. You also notice these gray boxes. And so those are called sections. So we have tabs right here, and then sections. Let me see if I can't pull that up in the new environment. It's just been super slow on the other screen. See if I can't pull up the same one in that environment and show you the difference. This is a datum, which is a classic. And so here we have, let me make sure. Yeah, it's not the exact same form, but here's the new user interface. And so here on the new user interface, so again, if we look at accounts, this is a list of accounts. And so if I compare that to the list here, so again, kind of see how it's a little bit different in formatting and stuff like that. So just be aware of that. And then if you open a record like we just had, here's that record. So if I were to open that record, these both take us to forms, and a form is an individual one again. I think we've touched on this already. And again, whatever user interface you use, the data is always the same in the database, right? So if I update this to 000, and we'll see if that saves. It looks like it's not connected. Let's reconnect that and see if it'll come through. But anyways, so it doesn't matter what the UI is. So the user interface is, it has the same database in the back end. And that's one of the powerful things about the new common data model, and then the services around that when it comes to being able to skin it different ways. So these are, again, power apps, and they're the model-driven power apps versus the Canvas apps. And again, the Canvas apps can connect to the common data model and the services and stuff like that. So anyway, so it looks like it's still reconnecting and spinning over there. Again, I need to replace this week. But going back to what I was saying, and again, we'll see how long this takes to refresh on the other screen. But we have the different sections. And again, when we look over here at this, we have additional different sections. And again, we have tabs. And so here it makes sense because these are what people commonly think of as tabs. In this user interface, it's a long scroll. And so these are actually different tabs here as well. And so if you click on these ones, they're closing, and you can open and close them. And again, there's a whole conversation around, should you have a bunch of them open when you land on here? Should you close them? And so when you first a lot of times what we'll do is we'll have them closed. One, to save space, and so people can quickly see the information they need. If they need to drill down into it, they can click on details. It's a little harder if people don't know where the information is being stored to find it, but it also allows people to have multiple departments in one form. And that just helps to make sure everybody's seeing this information consistently. Again, this is where you have to make sure that there's a balance, right? So as a customer service rep, maybe it's not important that I see the details. And if that's the case, then that should be hidden from me. But maybe I do need it, in which case it should be there, but is it the same information? The sales guy needs to see it and how he needs to see it. And that's another conversation for another design session. So we'll get to that some other time. But here we have the different tabs. And again, we have these different tabs that we can click on with different sections within that tab. So just a couple of quick examples of how things are laid out is part of it. The other thing that you'll often see is this command bar. So up here in the top, we have command bar, which allows us to take actions against the record. So we can run a workflow against the record. We can start a flow. We can send something out for signatures. We also have this concept of a word template. Looks like it's the first time I've clicked that here in this environment. So we'll see how long that takes. Yeah, of course, it's something with the screen, it seems like, or the fact that software's highlighting it. But you can do a word template, and this is something that, given permissions, an end user, so again, that client worker could create on their own. And this word template, I don't think it's going to have any information in it, but this goes ahead and gives us a quick summary. And so this is the account summary, and just opens in Word. I can see that information. So if I have recent opportunities, those will come in here. And so you can have from that parent, you can have child records. So you can also see recent cases and active entitlements. So again, from somebody that's either designing a system or somebody that's working in the system, I can now give this over to somebody as a client worker and say, hey, with a little help, if you're familiar with mail merge, you can also create these word templates. You can upload them. You can have system ones, you can have personal ones. And what that allows you to do is now have that quick report that I need to generate on account, either before I go out there, or I can print this off and give it to somebody as a BD or something like that. So I can quickly see that quick information. You can also do this for invoices and stuff like that. You want to be a little careful on that, because once I do an invoice, I can change it out here, but I don't change it in the system, and that's a whole nother discussion for another time as well. So I'll go ahead and close that as well. So different things and actions you can take across the top. I will bounce back over, and so again, just using some of the different navigation tricks, we can view recent items. And so if I go back and look at that lead that we had, so we had opened this lead, and so here again I see lead, and so that helps me, reminds me where I'm at and which table. Excel file. So I'm looking at a list of leads here. So what that looks like there. And so then we have this up here. And so again, this is another tool that Microsoft built out, I think it was 2013, called business process flows. And so a business process flow allows us to help navigate and help somebody walk through a process that we want to make sure. So again, this can be a lead, it can be a case. So from a case perspective, I want to do research I want to validate that they have a support contract maybe. And then I want to do the research on the item. And then I want to go ahead and resolve the item. So again, making sure that people follow consistently those 3 processes when they receive a case or on a lead and a sales. And this can all be configured. What fields are we asking? What order are we asking them in? And then also making sure that people answer questions before they go on to the next one. So here currently, we can fill out some information, say, okay, that is all the information that's needed or required. And so we can do that and click next. See the flag moves over to there. We can see how long the person's been in the sales process. I think you can also create it so that way it's also somebody that's in the different stages. I think you can do some reporting on that as well. And so you can quickly go through and sort of navigate somebody through that process. This gray section up here is called the header. And so there's header information on a form. So again, we're on a form here. We have the header, we got the business process flow, we got the content right here. And we actually have some footer information as well. And so when you scroll, all those, the top and the bottom remain the same as well. So a couple of different things there, just sort of as a general navigation. The other thing you have is, again, this is called, what do they rename it? I don't think it's this, maybe it's still the social pane. It used to be called the social pane. And so what the social pane was, is I can see the different posts. So if there's auto post or if somebody wanted to post a note for people to see, they can post it here. There is a notes section. So specific about this is duplicate lead, please double check before sending next time. So you can do that kind of stuff. There is this assistance. So we won't get into too much of this, but there is this concept of it's an AI sales assistant. And so making sure that we know sort of what should be next. And so the fact is I haven't touched this lead in 10 days and you need to make sure you're touching the lead every 11 days. And so it's going to remind me, hey, you probably should call this lead to keep them warm. And so there's some AI that's coming in to the Dynamics. I'm going to go ahead and collapse that to give it a little more room. So that helps with assistance, activities. This is activities is the concept of phone calls. And so I can quickly say, without leaving this, I can say, talked with Seth about stuff. Very interested in the new product coming out. And so that can remind me when that was coming. You can also do a due date. So if it's something that I want to do in the future, or you can just mark it at left voicemail. So again, as a sales individual, these are very important things. You can also do this in other places. And again, this is activities, and there's a number of places you can do activities. So you can do it on the account, the contact, the case, any custom entities you create, custom tables. You can do that there as well. Here we have tasks. So if you wanted to add a task, I needed to do, I have something I need to remind him, send a new product brochure. Looks like I'm missing the U, right? No, maybe, but voucher. Sure, we'll send him a new product voucher. Anyways, spelling game's not on point this Saturday morning. Anyways, we can do a due date, and we can also assign it to somebody else. So if I wanted to assign it, so by Tuesday, I need to have that sent out, and let's go ahead and give it to Alan. Alan's going to go ahead and do that. And so what that's doing is it's giving a task to Alan. And again, if we have Alan's task on his dashboard, he'll be able to see that. And also if Alan has his task integrated with his Outlook, his Exchange, then that task will also flow over to his Exchange mailbox. And so he'll see a task that pops up and says, okay, I need to send Seth a new product voucher, and he can come in here and complete that work and do that. There's other different activities, and we won't go through all this, but emails, appointments. So emails, hopefully everybody's familiar with that. Appointments, just scheduled meetings. So when we look at the integration with Exchange, emails are emails. And so you can, within an email, within Outlook, you can say, track this email, set regarding this lead. You can do that kind of stuff. You can also do appointments and stuff like that as well. And so, and then some additional activities down here, and we won't get into those today. It does have notes. Again, these are kind of more one-off notes. there's a whole discussion that we won't get into between posts and notes. And then you also have an ability to do OneNote integration. So if I'm in meeting with Seth and want to get some more of his information, I can go ahead and do an integration with OneNote. And what that's going to do is, as you can see here, it's going to go ahead and allow me to go ahead and track those notes. And now anybody that gets in the system will also be able to come in here and see those OneNote items. And so here, now when I click on that, I go click on OneNote, it's going to bring it up, and anybody that comes in and has access to this item that's actually being stored in SharePoint is able to see that information. I can do additional pages and different sections. And so being able to track that, and this is super helpful when it comes to an account or if it comes to products that you're talking to them about. And so now we no longer have, well, my notes were on my hard drive and Sam's notes were on their hard drive, and then somebody else had another meeting note. And so now we have it all in one place. So you can also do some projects. And so that would have been super helpful this week as we're doing discovery to have it all in one place. And so people are taking notes, and you know, multiple people in there, and you can be sharing the notes and everything. So I'm very excited about that as well. So anyways, another OneNote integration. Other things you can do, again, you have the ability to store documents. And again, this gets stored in SharePoint or in OneDrive. And so you have the ability there. And so here's the OneNote item. So you can actually open location, and this is going to open it in SharePoint specifically. And so there's a lot of different integrations. And again, when it comes to SharePoint and Dynamics, you should save documents and articles and stuff like that in SharePoint, because one, the space is a lot cheaper over in SharePoint, and then two, just being mindful of just the different metadata. Things to watch out for if you're a SharePoint person is Microsoft likes to make things interesting. And so if we were to look at this site, and of course I'm not getting there like I would like to. I think it's site contents. Everybody that's a SharePoint person is like, it's over there. But here we have the account, the documents, the leads, the opportunities and such. And so on the SharePoint side, when I look at an account, it looks like there's nobody in there, but it structures it funny for a SharePoint person. So just be very mindful of that. So the out of the box, it gets structured like this. And so Seth _ Good. And so it starts to do folders and nesting. In SharePoint, people hate folders. So just be mindful if you're doing an implementation, what that looks like. And so that's the out of the box functionality from Microsoft. And so that's there. So we're almost at an hour. So is there anything people want to see or to walk through? I know we've been focusing on sort of the leads process, but again, just highlighting sort of the basics. What's a dashboard? You can change your dashboards. So if I wanted to look at the partner pipeline, and so you can control this as well. And so what people can see, and again, when we start doing an app, when you do an app, you can control even more of that. And so if there's, you just want to show 2 dashboards as a part of this app, you can do that, which is really nice. So you have dashboards. Again, the goal of dashboards is to answer 80% of your questions or help you perform 80% of your work. So if I want to drive it somewhere, so here's actually a pretty good chart right now, but here I can see my one opportunity. So it looks like June of 2014 was awesome, and since then we just kind of been mediocre, except for March 7, 2017 compared. So you can see that information. I can see my top opportunities one. So again, sales management. So as a sales manager, being able to see that, but again, you can share this out. And so it's not just one person, it's the whole management team, and you can do queries, and on that query, you can say, show me opportunities where I'm the sales manager, or show me opportunities with my sales team. And so there's a lot of information there as well. So we have dashboards. We have the ability to search. I didn't go through that, but here we have a search. And so if I wanted to look for Seth in the system, what we'll do is it's going to search across the system and helping us find that information. And when that comes back, we'll see more of that. Here's everywhere it's mentioned. So we got, looks like 4 different contacts that are Seth. We got leads, and again, it's based on a couple of different places. And so you see it's in first name, you see it's in last name, you see it first name again, and a number of different places there. So, so that's the quick, that's the global search. We have recent records. Again, you can pin these, come back to them later. So that way, if it's something that you want to quickly jump back to, you can. So the partner pipeline, like we saw earlier, actually, let's go to the sales management pipeline. You can do that. We also have what's called quick create. And so that's this little plus up here in this environment. Let me see if it's over in the other one as well. Yeah. Looks like everything's just gone a little slow. So here we have the ability to quickly create. So if I wanted to create an account, I can do that. Create the account name, phone number, some of the the required information, the minimum information to get in there. Again, this is something that Gus talks about from a user experience. Give me only, when I'm doing a quick create, don't let me fill in all this information and then come to find out the person's already in there or the account's already in there. Even though I entered in like 10 other fields, the only thing that was required and the thing that's on the back end doing duplicate detection is the account name. And so what could end up happening is I enter all this information because it's the first time I've talked to RSM, and I think this is amazing. But the fact is there's like 6 RSMs in the system already, or hopefully just one, but there's other RSMs in the system, and it's going to kick it back as a duplicate because Sam already talked to RSM and it's in the system. So one of the best practices that Gus mentions is being able to go ahead and just put in the one field, just put in the required fields here so people can quickly enter in the information. I don't think RSM's in the system yet, but without putting in all this other information, I can click save. And what that's going to do is now I can view that record. It didn't kick back, and now I can update the rest of the information because I know it's not a duplicate in the system. So other pet peeve is, as somebody that's configuring the system, less is more. Less is always more when it comes to this kind of stuff, especially if it's things that people don't use. And this is where when you start getting into these different apps, being able to place just what you need into the application is super important. So when we're getting in here, go ahead and take a look at these different items. Make sure you go into the back end, into the solutions, and potentially disable them. Again, if you're creating apps, and again, these are the different apps that you can create. If that's what you're going through that process, look to remove them out of the system. It's not part of that app, and that'll go ahead and help reduce the apps you have in there as well. So, anyways, that's a quickish highlight of just sort of the flow and the functions. When we talked about a form, I think we didn't do a second recap on the form, and now my browser's frozen, which is always fun. But when we're doing there we go. Looking at a form, so a form is a single record, whereas a view is a list of records. And so when I'm looking at a single record, again, we have the header, we got the business process flow, we got the detail in there, and again, within the detail, we have the tabs, and then under the tabs, we have the sections. So again, just highlighting that header. So we have the command bar up here, the header in the gray, the business process flow here in the green. We then have tabs that we can hide and show by clicking on them. And then we also have sections, and sections are what contains attributes or fields. And then again, we have the footer down there at the bottom. So I think with that, again, we're not going through the process. Hopefully that's not, we can go through the process, we can go through that next week. But again, trying to like quickly go through just sort of how it flows, where it goes, the process and the designing behind it. Just at sort of that quick 20,000 foot view, not how to configure it like we usually do. We're not configuring flow this week or anything like that, like we did last week. But that's what it is. And so that's how you navigate around Dynamics. Super simple. hopefully. And then again, this is more of the sysadmin, sort of the new user that's familiar with systems, and then just calling out sort of the different systems. If you're a system administrator, hopefully this is helpful to understand sort of where the different components will come out at. So if you're looking at a solution, understanding, okay, this is where a view is, this is how an end user will interact with a view, how a form gets laid out, and such. So with that, we'll go ahead and start wrapping it up. So if you have questions, throw them in the chat. Feel free to do that. If there's anything else you want to highlight, I do have a couple more minutes, and I don't think the kid's up yet. I don't hear him yet. So if you have anything else you want to cover before we jump off from today, let us know down in the chat. If not, hit us up on Twitter at the Bacon Bites, and we'll be sure to include it in next week's. I know a number of people are going to be out there in Boston and Glasgow, up there in Scotland, and so excited for them to be a part of that. And so it's too bad we don't have sort of virtual. What I would do is just sort of hit pause and send you guys all over to that, and so that way you can watch it. So appreciate everybody joining us and hitting us up in the comments. Airborne Commo, I appreciate you joining us this week. Appreciate the encouragement there with the awesome bite this weekend. Appreciate that. And then also CRM MVP Media. It looks like Gus is doing some rebranding from CRM MVP Podcast to be a little more inclusive with the media stuff. It sounds like he's got a whole conglomerate going on. And again, if you haven't checked them out, definitely do it. Just as we're going, reminder on a couple of the things that are coming up. And the people. So Daryl LaBar, highlighting him, developer. So anybody that's a developer or interested in seeing how developers think, check out Daryl. If you're interested in some more sort of what's up and coming, again, Stephan Smith is another person recommend following, sort of, again, that developer bent and where that's coming from. He very much focuses in on efficiencies and how to make sure from an automation and processing standpoint you're doing what's most efficient. CRM Audio Podcast, as always. CRM MVP Podcast. As well. So make sure you're checking this one out. And this was CRM MVP Media. So this is with Gus. And this is the one that he says he's got 5 developers, MVP developers getting together. And so I'll be very interested to see what that topic is. Gus enjoys being controversial and like trying to get people either to agree with him or disagree with him. So it'll be fun to see what topic he's got in store for those guys and gals. XRM Toolbox, if you're not already using it as sysadmin, definitely check it out. And then also Dynamic Saturdays coming up, number of different ones coming up: Boston, Scotland, Milan. It looks like we got a Dynamics Power in London as well. Is that actually, that's today? So this already happened, I'm pretty sure, since they're way ahead of us. So hopefully anybody, I need to reach out to Jamie. I think Jamie and maybe Charles from our RSM office were out there today. So check them out. Looks like Colin's out there. This may be where I was thinking of with Nick. I wonder if Nick's out here. Anyways, Neil's out there. He won the CRA Dynamics Community All-Star Award last year, I think. Chris is out there as well. So anyways, check them out. Hopefully these guys and gals had an awesome time, and be very interested to hear how that went. So that was today. Very cool. So check them out. Make sure you are seeing what's in your local area. And if you have an opportunity to travel a little bit for work, definitely do that. And then also, again, if there's things that you think are interesting, post on it. Get out there on social media. Get out there, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or Twitch or any number of platforms. I think the biggest thing with new consultants and new people into the space, one, they're scared to reach out to people like Gus or Neil or Daryl, and they feel tentative about that. They enjoy what they do, and we enjoy what we do, and so very much reach out to them, ask questions, engage them in the community. And the other thing people often don't realize is that the questions that you have, if you can't find an answer, it doesn't mean that it's not an issue. It means it is an issue. You just happen to be the first one to hit it, potentially. So write some content, write a blog article, and get that information out there. And I think that's the biggest thing, even with college hires, that as they've come on to RSM, it's encouraging them. Hey, you do know a lot of stuff, and that thing that took you 2 hours or 3 hours or all day to figure out, write a blog. That's an awesome opportunity because somebody else is having that same issue potentially. So definitely check it out. So anyways, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Appreciate everybody joining this morning. Have a great weekend and a great week next week. Hit us up if there's a topic you want us to cover or have questions, and we look forward to catching you next time. Thanks, y'all.